demonstrates that culture, tradition, and lifestyle choices are strongly linked with climate change, mitigation, and adaptation. So it is to do with, the lifestyle, the trends that we follow, our culture, our traditions, where, even Earth, we address Earth as Mother Earth. So the little choices that we make in our everyday life, the mode of travel that we use, the home appliances that we use, the lifespan of it, the reuse, the recycling habits that we have inculcated since long, our dietary habits, everything, all this counts, all this is linked somewhere to the resilience that we are talking of today. Go to the first slide. Nikita, change the slide.
Yes, ma'am. 1 second.
Keep moving the slide as I talk.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I was talking to our Indian traditions and all, I am reminded of, what our Honorable Prime Minister has said. Climate change is a pressing global challenge. It calls for a collective human action and a comprehensive response. In India, faith and nature have had a deep link since ancient times. So as I was mentioning, it is deeply rooted in our tradition. Next. Next slide. Keep moving, Nikita. The slides, yeah. Now, when we talk of the climate change, now it is not a one-day disaster or a one-day problem which has come up. It is the effects are seen over a long period of time. So when we talk of climate change, it refers to the long-term shifts in temperature and the weather patterns. And these could be either natural or human-made induced factors, which all contributes to the climate change. And it has always happened, but it is only in the 1800s and in India, particularly in the 1900s, that we have realized. And over a period of time, because the ill effects of it has been so bad, that it is time that if we don't wake up now, then the future generations will have nothing, the disaster would have gone beyond repair. So that is why efforts are being made at all levels to bring about a resilient society. Next slide. Now, talking of the hazards or the man-made disaster repercussions of all these disasters that we are experiencing today are urban flooding, heat waves, cyclones, droughts and water scarcity, landslides, rising sea level and storm surges. You can see this image of how in Vietnam, which has been listed by the World Bank as one of the 5 countries which is hardest hit by the climate change. And here you can see how the climate change results in frequent flooding, especially in very poor areas of Vietnam. The fields have had all this has had a, the effect is seen on the financial loss of the poor people. And many people are still struggling, after all these, they have to struggle to pay for the repairs of their homes. The streets get badly choked, badly affected. All this leads to, the later diseases which comes after it. And all this has finally affected the entire livelihood of Vietnam. So we see frequent floodings in some place. Then you can see the next case of Odisha, where, Odisha and in fact cyclones are almost synonymous because of, again, global warming being the reason over here. And Odisha of late has now come under the category 4 cyclone, which is, approximately 99 to 130 mph. So here you can also see effect, the depression in Bay of Bengal, which is a very frequent thing here. So the effects of cyclone is seen in Odisha. Then you have Miami sinking. The western parts of Miami was built on, reclaimed wetlands, wherein you can see almost 5 to 6 feet of rise of sea level. And this is also, you can see how 8 lakh population, almost residents, were affected by this. and there was a big problem of, the city was almost, the city became uninhabitable. It was not good enough for people to live here. So these are all the repercussions which we see of global warming. So here also there is a world map. You can see how the carbon emissions are maximum in few countries, and in few countries it is comparatively less. So these carbon emissions are calculated owing to the per capita with respect to the population, and you can see how countries, which produce more oil are the worst in terms of emitting more carbon emissions. You can have the Qatar, you have UAE, you have Saudi Arabia, which are having more of carbon emissions. And of course, you have the countries which have the highest is in terms of the US, the Australia, and Canada. Again, have the highest emissions. A few parts of Europe also. So comparatively, India, emits less compared in a global context. Then next slide, it talks of a comparison is made of different countries with respect to the global, rating. So compared to the overall global rating, which countries are, the blue color indicates which are below the global rating and level, and the above, the red color is above the global equity. So in the first and the second one is more zoom. If you zoom the map, you can see how the Western countries are the worst, and some of the so-called developed countries have a maximum carbon emissions per capita compared to the developing and the poor countries. So it is very easy to say, that you should not have more developments because you will emit more carbon, and the developed countries, in fact, emit the most, the maximum emission of carbon is from those countries. So keeping all this in mind, there has been an effort by the UN to develop goals towards sustainability, which every country has to follow. So there is a commitment made by the governments of various countries which come forward and come to a common uniform strategy which they have to follow. So go to the next slide. Here we are talking how these aspects, the 17 goals that the UN talks of towards sustainability, these are to be practiced at all levels, at the urban level, rural level, from the macro to the micro level. Each of this becomes very important. The first one you can see, which is talking of no poverty. Now, no poverty is which aims, at social protection for the poor. That is, if the poor need to have at least basic access to basic services, and which should be supported by, climate related extreme effects. If they are the most vulnerable. So unless you cater to, or you think of the most vulnerable, you cannot really achieve anything. So the no poverty is, which stands first in terms of social protection for the poor. The second one is zero hunger. Zero hunger, which talks of to end hunger, that is to achieve food security and improved nutrition, and promote all measures of sustainable agriculture, which is, I was talking in the initial first slide also, our ancient traditional methods were all following the sustainable practices, whether it is agriculture or any other cooking in the kitchen, right from the kitchen to the agriculture, everything was all sustainable. Today, we have replaced it with all chemicals, and we have replaced it with all science and technology to get more production, but somewhere we have compromised on the sustainable measures. Then you have good health and well-being. Now this ensures that healthy lives of people, which promotes well-being for all ages, is very essential for sustainable development. We have seen recently, after the COVID-19, how the health of individuals was affected, and all this was because of low immunity and so on. So COVID-19, post-COVID-19, the pandemic effects, which are still being seen in people, especially, the young crowd, anxiety, depression, all this. So there is an effort to make people aware towards health related issues and to make, healthy living, which is a prerequisite, which is very, very important. Then you have quality education. Now, education, it is believed, it liberates the intellect and it leads to, it is the most important key to prosperity. It opens up opportunities, and you will have people who can contribute in a better way to a progressive, healthy society. They should, education should be actually freely available. Everybody has to be accessible to it, especially the poor people, free. And in fact, you can see even in our country, efforts are being made at all the local government level to provide free primary and secondary education. So all this should be stressed on more. Vocational education should also be given importance. So finally, skill development, which leads to financial success and safe, secured schools, providing scholarships, such kind of measures have to be taken to provide quality education, where the education has to also be sustainable. That is, towards the end, you develop skills in children in today's generation so that they can provide self-employment and they do not depend on others for making their living. So this should be this should also be one of the goals. Then you have gender equality. Now, gender equality is empowering all women and girls, which is very necessary, and it is very important to have a peaceful and prosperous and sustainable world. Again, it ends all forms of discrimination, violence, and it calls for the participation of women and equal opportunities. So it should start right from leadership to all levels, from the home to the political decision making. Every level we have to see women empowerment, and we have to see that there is gender equality both at home and at the workplace. Then you have clean water and sanitation. This again, most of the time, efforts are made to some extent, but it is not really full up to the mark. So it has to be made right from the gully level, from the micro level to the macro level, where there is access to clean water and adequate sanitation measures are taken for a safe and healthy living again. So all these are somewhere correlated. Then you have affordable and clean use of energy. So here we are talking of also the renewable energy, which aims at supporting, clean and green technologies. So we can also, catalyze, you can include the public and private financing to encourage more of the clean energy. Then decent work and economic growth, which is achieved, through good economic productivity, through diversification and technological upgrading and innovation, which should focus on high value and labor intensive market, sectors, so that there is better economic growth. So each country might here in this case adapt to different measures to ensure that there is a good economic growth and a decent living working conditions for people. Then you have the industry, innovation and infrastructure. Then you have the reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities. Sustainable cities, of course, a lot of initiatives are being taken at city level also with respect to the infrastructure. We are talking of green infrastructure today. We are talking of using better, more sustainable materials for construction and so on. And then responsible consumption and production. So, it should start right at the production, initial production stage itself. And then it has to follow up even at the consumption stage, where there is, less wastage and you use only what is required. And there is after the use also you ensure the reuse and the recycling, so that we cover up, or we are become more responsible towards the achieving this goal. Then we talk of climate action, of course, which we are talking here as one of the theme. Then life below water. Life below water is also very important because, our oceans are also our planet's important part of our planet's life support, and they provide water, food, and so to regulate the life underwater is also very important, as important as the next one, which is the life on land. So life on land, when we are talking of how to promote sustainable use of the ecosystem and the biodiversity. It is very, very important over here. Again, how we are talking in terms of the cleanup drives that we are incorporating at various levels, the avoid using of pesticides, chemicals, etc. Then you have peace, justice, and strong institutions. So we need to build up all these to promote non-discriminatory laws, policy, to combat corruption, bribery, and all these measures should be to prevent or to stop crime in some way. So these, unless this is done because peace is, as we have seen, peace is very important, because all other goals you cannot achieve if there is no peace. So peace was also given stressed upon, in addition to the other measures like the climate change and all. It was thought that this strong building up of strong institutions to achieve them is also very, very important. And then it is also talking of the partnerships. So over here, when organizations or people come together with who have who share the same goal, it becomes more easier to achieve the goal. So partnerships between various organizations, the PPP model, the government, private and public bodies, they can all come forward, collaborate, mobilize resources, mobilize finance. You can have the universal trading system, remove the trade barriers and so on, and which can lead to a sustainable growth. So this was to do at the macro level. Then we are talking of, go to the next slide. Yeah, so how it all started. The next one. This is talking of the National Action Plan on Climate Change, where it is talking of various missions in this plan, which talks of National Water Mission, National Mission for Sustaining Ecosystem. Then it talks of the Solar Mission, and it talks of the Enhanced Energy Efficiency. And in this, it is talking of the National Mission on Sustainable Habitat. So habitat is relevant at the micro level, where we talk of how to maintain a sustainable habitat. Then it is also talking of sustainable agriculture practice, Green India Mission, and so on. So these are all the various, action plans which have started off at the city level and at the micro level. Yeah. Next slide. Now, this is talking of the NMSH, which we had seen in the previous slide. It is one of the key factors. Here we are talking of how extension of energy conservation building code. Now today, any building, it is mandatory to get a clearance to have that it is ECBC certified, at least for a few sections of the building. It has still not been made as mandatory by law. So it is high time that we make it mandatory to adopt the building code, which is promoting green. It is today it is more like incentives are given and they are more promoted, though it is not made mandatory, but very soon it should be made mandatory to have the green energy building code implemented. Then we are talking of better urban planning and modal shift to public transportation. Now the success for any city is not measured by the number of car owners that you have. It is measured by if maximum people in the city travel by public transportation, only then it is said to be a smart city, and only then it is said to be a sustainable city. If your mass transit system has failed, that is, if maximum people do not use it and most of them end up using their vehicles, that means somewhere you have failed on the transport planning. The last mile connectivity is missing here. So we need to work on that, which is very, very important. Then we are talking of recycling of material and urban waste management. So here, this is also a very important part of our sustainable habitat. water resource management and drinking water supply in urban areas, wastewater management. As I was telling in the previous slide also, access to clean drinking water supply is equally important, and how we conserve our water resources. Today, we are building on the on the sea, we are reclaiming wetlands, and we are building. So all that is not required. It should be avoided. Then it is talking of the municipal solid waste management and the urban stormwater management. Urban stormwater management is a very big problem in all the urban areas. Hardly any thought is given to it uh, at the macro level and at the micro level also. Cities don't give thought to it. Even in in your own city, if you see how many communities or how many group of dwellings you will have where the stormwater drain is actually addressed to. Hardly. I remember when our students go out for studying stormwater drains, they hardly have any examples to cite. All they end up is doing some desktop studies of it being applicable in some context in some other place which they have never seen. But you have only planned city like Chandigarh and a few more good examples where you can actually see the stormwater drains effectively managed, or in some places, even if it's provided, it is not functional. So the effective management of all this is required. So it is not just providing facilities, amenities, but also infrastructure, but also managing it, and how the practices by the people, which becomes very important. Next. Yeah, so here we are talking of the Smart Cities Mission, Swachh Bharat, which I'm sure everybody is aware of, then the Urban Transport Program, and so on. Next. Yeah, some of the smart solutions, which are taken up by at the city level. In fact, 100 cities have been identified under the smart city concept. So they have taken up various measures with respect to like e-governance, citizen services, energy management, urban mobility, waste management, water management, and so on. So likewise. Next. Yeah, these are the list of the cities which are working towards smart cities. Next. Yeah, here this is an example of Infosys building, which is the phase 2 campus at next slide. Yeah, this is example of sustainable campus, which is Infosys Pune, which is a very good example of how the city. In fact, this campus is got the LEED certification, the second phase, and it has in two stages, wherein you had retrofit of the old buildings to make them workable, to make them more efficient. So it was seen at all levels, where right from the retrofitting the chiller plants to the air handling units, BMS retrofit, the UPS, everything from the lighting to everything, how the retrofitting was done. And in addition, the new campus, the new parts which were developed, the new buildings were also very efficiently designed. So they have met all the standards, and today they are LEED certified. This is a very good example. Today it is accommodating almost 34,000, more than 34,000 people. Nikita, I think you can just play one video I have sent you, which is talking of this Infosys campus at Pune.
Yes, ma'am. Just give me a minute.
Our retrofit costs are 21% lower than the standard costs that are there in the industry.
Rainwater harvesting is practiced throughout the campus, which features 42 recharge wells, 3 reservoirs, and a 65 million litre capacity. Efficient fixtures and dual flush toilets also contribute to conservation, as does an on-campus sewage treatment plant.
Design optimization for water gave us 45% savings in office buildings, 43% savings in food courts, and 33% savings in guest houses. We do very comprehensive smart metering process, which are connected back to our building management systems.
All waste is segregated at source. Organic waste is converted into fuel at a 2-ton biogas plant. Dried leaves are used to make vermicompost.
More than 90% of the waste have been diverted from landfills and have been reused in a responsible way.
Infosys believes in providing its employees a healthy and a comfortable work environment. Carbon dioxide sensors permeate the campus, and frequent indoor air quality audits are conducted to ensure that all systems are performing properly. For overall quality assurance, the performance of every building on the 113-acre complex is monitored and managed by one central command system.
There's also a very comprehensive advanced help desk where an employee can log in the system and raise a complaint if he has issues in comfort. LEED is a very thoughtfully designed framework of evaluating a building environment that is green, safe and sustainable. We realize that LEED gives us a holistic view of what is needed to be done to give the occupants an environment to deliver to their best potential.
As an environmentally and socially aware multinational, Infosys is committed to sustainability's triple bottom line: people, planet and profit. And LEED, the only globally recognized rating system for green building, is working with Infosys every step of the way.
Infosys strives to deliver value and innovation to build a sustainable future for ourselves, for our clients and for the society that we live in. So all our projects are designed keeping LEED Platinum as the ultimate goal.
To learn more, visit JBCI.
Ma'am, you want the other video also, or shall we go back to the
you go to the slide 20.
Okay, ma'am.
No, slide 20.
Slide number 20.
Nikita?
Yes, ma'am. 1 second. I had to go back to check.
Where I'm talking of that climate resilient farming.
Ah.
Yeah, this is one example, where we are talking of climate resilient farming, wherein, you can conserve using indigenous varieties of crops, which are not necessarily locally grown. So this was an example where in West Bengal, there was a place where this place was highly vulnerable to cyclones, and they had problems of, where the water wasn't very saline and other issues, which was somewhere affecting the local agriculture. So what they thought is, the community, a group of people, they volunteered, and they grew 62 different varieties of rice in the field, which is best grown in upland conditions surrounded by low saline water. So this was one measure adopted, wherein it also made organic compost and conducted rainwater. They also conducted various rainwater harvesting on the field. So this particular growing this particular crop did help them to some extent. Then you can go to the next slide. Yeah, here we are talking of the same thing. How conservation of this indigenous rice varieties helped them to tackle the salt tolerant, and also which was very critical to sustain the local agriculture. So this was one example, wherein because of this they could revive interest amongst the community members who had otherwise given up this practice, and they could imbibe in them the traditional varieties, and which have been later on adopted for practice. Then next one. These are all initiatives, few examples, where efforts are being made at the local level, at school level, wherein you have this Delhi Public School, which is the efforts are made by the school children by planting native trees and increasing the local biodiversity to play a significant role in enhancing urban resilience. So as I told you, it has to start at all levels, right from school level to the every school or every university, every institution can have a small biodiversity setup in their own campus. So this also where you can invite the local flora and fauna. In fact, we were also thinking of on similar lines at our institution, which is still pending. So these, because we all know the role of trees and how they combat in lowering the temperature. So all these measures were taken up. These are few examples. And also composting of wet waste, segregation of the waste, and use of biocompost in school gardens. So these were little initiatives which were taken up. Then you also had this next one, Gyan Mandir Public School which was also making similar efforts of managing the water resources and endpoint consumption. What they did is they have identified where the problem is. So they have not just they have worked out on a solution wherein you identify the problem and you work out right from the source till the end. So you can see in this diagram how right from this mapping of, they have done a mapping of the entire water cycle, which from where the water is used till the end consumption. So mapping of water resources in the campus, where they have worked on how the water is to be used, how wastewater can be avoided by the use of, repair of leakages, installing of float valves, imbibing drip irrigation. And there was a systematic approach to conserve water. Water quality tests were done. Then rooftop rainwater harvesting was done. So all these measures where they identified, right from the wastage till the end, this all helped in conserving water. Then there is one oregano community here in Hyderabad. It is a gated community where it is a very good example of how sustainable practices have been, inculcated, and which have been forced kind of, on the residents. And today, the entire community is self-sustainable. It does not have to depend on the outside for its day-to-day requirements. So, I'll show you one video which is talking of this a particular community. So at the community level, how through sustainable practices, you can work out and have a better quality of life. This is a good example. Today, it is on the city, outskirts of the city. You can play the video of that, Nikita. It is the oregano. Yeah, Nikita, just play the video.
Just 1 minute, ma'am.
Urbanization is a global phenomenon, and more so in a developing country like India. Cities have grown up substantially. For example, the population in Hyderabad has nearly doubled in the last 15 years or so. So this creates substantial impact on the city resources, on the city infrastructure, and it's going to have a major impact on the environment. So there is a need to break this linkage between the growth of buildings and the increase in resource consumption.
I looked at my own lifestyle, like why are we running after this rat race? Like how do you look at happiness versus GDP? If we are all going towards GDP, somewhere there is a flaw. As an architect, can we reduce the demand itself, minimize the demand of human living, and yet make it very aspirational? Organo Nandi is fundamentally an intention of creating an eco-habitat. It's not just development, it's about building a community and the whole ecosystem around it. First thing that we actually said is that our company is going to do only triple bottom line business. People, planet, and then profits.
I've always been a city boy, never knew the nuances of a village. But when I visited Nandi for the first time, I saw the passion in the developers, and they transformed a barren land to eco-habitat and a community where the life is buzzing, and that's when I decided to be a part of Nandi.
There are 7 strands of sustainability in which we will try to measure. One is earth. How are we contributing to earth? Similarly, energy that our project is going to consume, and then water, air, people, shelter, and then food. In Organo Nandi, we have a goal to produce our own food in front of our eyes. We have 6 acres plus land for vegetables and fruits. And apart from this, we also have dairy. We produce our own milk. That is all shared by everybody. Like everybody is partner in that.
We were thinking about the sustainability, natural farming, and all of that stuff. And when we moved here, I met a lot of people who were thinking the same things.
75% of the staff, those who work here, are from the local villages. And they became multi-skilled also. Now, electrician can also repair irrigation system.
నా పేరు మమత, మా ఊరు పేరు బాకారం. నేను ఇలా ఆర్గానిక్లో పనిచేయడానికి రావడం 2 సంవత్సరాల నుంచి చేస్తున్నాను. ఆర్గానిక్లో పనిచేయడం వలన బాగానే ఉంది. ఆర్గానిక్ ప్రకృతిలో అనడానికి బాగానే ఉంది. బయట దానికన్నా ఇక్కడ ఆర్గానిక్లో పనిచేయడం వలన మనం సొంతంగా పండించినట్టుగానే బాగా ఉంది.
இன்னொன்று என்னென்னா அவங்க இங்கேருந்து இந்த பக்கத்தில் இருக்கிற ஃபார்மர்ஸ் எல்லாம் இங்கேருந்து ஆர்கானிக் மெத்தடில் எப்படி பண்ணுறோம் அதை அவங்க இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்ண முடியுமான்னு இங்கிட்ட இருந்து கற்றுக்கிட்டு போய் அங்கே பண்ணுறாங்க. அது ஒன்று எனக்கு ரொம்ப பாசிட்டிவாக பக்கத்தில் இருக்கிற நெய்பர்ஸ் இதெல்லாம் கம்யூனிட்டி.
As a resident, I feel good that not only am I getting the benefit of Nandi, but at the same time, the community is taking care of the larger village community around us.
మేము ఇక్కడ పని చేయడం వల్ల మా ఆయన నేను మా పిల్లలు సంతోషంగానే ఉన్నాం. ఇక్కడ మాకు ఆర్గానిక్లో అప్పుడు అది స్కూల్ ఫీజు కట్టాలన్నా దానికి దీనికన్నా ఇబ్బంది అవుతుంది. ఇప్పుడు ఏమి ఇబ్బంది లేకుండా మంచిగా సంతోషంగా బాగా ఉన్నాం.
I think we as a community are healthier and happier. Everybody knows everybody and there are very healthy relationships.
இதுக்கு முன்னாடி அப்பார்ட்மெண்ட்டில் இருக்கும்போது என்னென்னா பசங்க வீட்டுக்குள்ளே விளையாடுறது, இப்போ இங்கே வந்ததுக்கப்புறம் இது பெரிய எக்ஸ்டெண்டட் ஃபேமிலி மாதிரி ஆயிடுச்சு. எல்லோரும் எப்போவும் ஃபுல்லாக எல்லோரும் வீட்டுக்கு போய் ஃபுல்லாக விளையாடுறது ஃபுல்லாக.
They made it very clear that environmental sustainability and good living can go together. And in addition to that, they also brought in a concept of social inclusivity.
I absolutely love Nandi. What more can I say? I would never go back to living, the way we were living before. I mean, this is my heaven.
In its own small way, what Nandi has done here is good for the planet, and being part of that community makes me very happy.
Nandi is a shining example of a building project in the entire country. It gives you a lot of hope for the future.
Now I consider myself proudly Nandian. This is how the future should be.
This is a very good example of how an entire ecosystem is built. So even though this community, this society, it is located on the outskirts of the city, but people don't mind commuting because the quality of life that it offers. And of course, as you had seen the residents, they were talking that it is a much more happier place, a healthier place. So end of the day, if you get a place which is healthy to live, which makes you happy, I think that compensates. And if you don't mind traveling long distance to come to the city for place of work. So all said and done, this is a good example. So I would end the talk with what Ernest Hemingway had said, that the earth is a fine place and worth fighting for. So it all depends on how we take care of this planet.